In today's video, I am going to show you how to properly install Alaska bush tracks on an 8-wheeled Argo. The model I will be using is a Conquest. It's an older model, and it will actually be easier to install these on a newer model, but you can still do it, and I'm going to show you how it's done. The tools that I will be using today: 2 jack stands, 1 jack, 1 ratchet strap, something to get the tires off with, air compressor, measuring tape, gloves, permanent marker, and then optional is tire sealant, although I highly recommend throwing tire sealant into your tires, especially before a big hunt. Just gives you one less thing to worry about. So the first thing you want to do is to jack up your Argo. Now the best way to do this is to throw a board under there, jack it up, that way you don't damage the plastic tub. And this is actually the engine side. This is the heaviest part of the vehicle, so I will be using 2 jack stands, 1 on each side. And the rear is not as heavy as the front, so you just want a little bit of air under those tires. A little bit more. I'm using a scissor jack in the back. Should be sufficient, but I wouldn't put my life on it. I wouldn't put my head under that vehicle while it's up or anything. Now you need to take off all 8 tires. And that's my favorite part about working with an Argo. Why do one time what you can do 8 times? I have the parking brake on, and that makes it really easy to just go ahead and get these tires off. And when you're taking off all your wheels, it's actually a great time to do some maintenance. You can see I got all this crap here. You just take that off. And it also, on the Conquest models, I have access to these grease nipples right here. Once you get all the tires off, what we need to do now is measure every single tire and sort them from largest to smallest. Now there will be some manufacturer defects in the rubber, and that means every tire is technically a different size. This is what you need to do to measure it. You need to take a soft tape measure, just like this one, and you're going to measure it from the outer seam to the outer seam. And you can actually feel that there'll be a little bump there. So you measure from outer to outer. Try to get that as straight as possible. And so this one measures 4 feet 6.5 inches. And so for comparison, we'll measure the one right next to it. This one measures 4 feet 7.75 inches. So you see there is quite a bit of difference. So you want to measure every single tire for both sides and then lay them out from largest to smallest. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. But when you have all 8 of your tires lined up from largest to smallest, now what we're going to do is actually set it up so each side is the same. And this is the setup that we're going to do. The front tire is the smallest. The tire back from the front tire is the biggest. The tire behind that is the second biggest, and then the end tire, the rear tire, is medium. So again, the first tire is small, second tire is the largest, third tire is the second largest, and the fourth tire is the medium tire. So if this is the tread here, and if it's rolling this way, then that would be pointed forward. So if the tires are going this way, that's a forward tread, and if the tires are going this way, that's a backwards tread. These wider angles are going to make it easier to swim in the water. So that's called the swim direction. This is called the tread direction this way. Now every tire has a different pattern, but this is a general rule, and no matter what your pattern looks like, you should be able to pick up on it with this video. The best case scenario, if you can, actually have it swim direction in the rear tire. So it's actually going to go aggressive, front tire, and then swim, swim, swim. My small tires are behind me here. These 2 are small. Valve stem face out, and then the tread is going to be faced forward, that aggressive tread. Okay, so both of these are the smallest, valve stem out. So this is the front tire, and this is the front tire. So I'm going to place these where they need to go on the machine. Front tire, here. And then this one goes to the other side. Straightforward enough, it just takes a little bit of legwork is all. Okay, so now we have the extra large tire. So the biggest tire is the next one, and that's gonna have the swim tread face forward. So these two are my largest tires. Valve stem face out, and the swim tread is faced this way. So this one will be, yeah, that actually both works. I got lucky there. Okay, swim tread faced out. Great. Okay, there's a small tire, extra large, now next largest tire, which are these two here. This is why we lay it out. It makes everything so much easier to put together. A medium tire, or large tire, good. And now these are also swim tread. So swim tread faced forward, so the wide pattern forward facing. And this will be on the right side. And this one. So now we're running into a problem where, see, this swim tread isn't going to work right because the valve stem needs to be on the outside, so that needs to go this way. But unfortunately, the aggressive tread is here. So if this happens, the most important thing isn't the size. Well, you need the smallest tires on the front. That is the most important. But second important, you do need that tread faced the right way. So what I'm going to do is swap this one for one of these medium tires, and that'll be okay. Down to our last tires is the medium-sized tires. So I'm going to make sure everything fits on this side, and this one goes to the other side. And if you have a Conquest, you will need 2.5-inch spacers. I picked these up from the Argo dealer. I believe there are better quality ones at a better price, but time was of the essence for me, so I paid the extra money. But a lot of the newer models, you actually don't need spacers at all. You just flip the tire around and the rim bows outwards, so you get the extra inches that you need. But these are easy enough to install. They go between those bolts there. So I'm going to put those on all the axles right now. You see, this Argo I'm working on has a 1-inch spacer. This is a custom job. Your Argo most likely will not have this. It's just going to go right against the wheel hub, and this is the hex bolt, and you want to get those on tight as you can against the back of the wheel. And then I actually use this tire iron, and then I'll crank that on so it's tight. Okay, so you see the corners here, they're not fitting flush against the spacer. This one either. So I start at the top. This one I have to crank to the right a little bit. So take your tool, crank it to the right, and then retest. Now, I know it's a pain in the ass, guys, but the nice thing about these is that once they're locked in there, the wheels will prevent these from ever moving, so you don't have to use Loctite or any of that. So once you get it on there, it's a one-time thing. Then you're done. Once you have all the tires back on, spacers on, now you need to remove the air from the front, or from the front and the rear tire, and reduce air pressure in the middle. Now, you do want to leave a little bit of air pressure, maybe about 3 pounds, but I'm going to take out a lot of air here, and then we'll correct the PSI once we get the track on. And so I like to take out the valve stems on the rear and the front. It makes it real easy. There's one. You don't want to lose those valve stems because you'll be in trouble. Woo. And these middle ones, I'm just going to remove some air just to soften them up. But I will leave the valve stem in. Now it's time to put the track on the machine. Now this track weighs around 120 pounds, and I recommend doing it with another person. It's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Now you'll notice there's two parts of the track. There's actually a thick side and a skinny side. So here's the thick side, the outside, and then the skinny side goes on the inside. That's so it doesn't hit the machine while you're running. You're gonna want to slide it underneath the tires. Remember guys, skinny side inside. Skinny side in. One more time, skinny side goes in. That looks good. The tires are gonna sit just inside. The track's there. Fat side on the outside. Now we bend it up over the tire. Don't be afraid to manhandle it. You're not going to hurt the track, and you're definitely not going to hurt the Argo. This is all hard rubber and plastic, and it's basically bulletproof. At the top of the track, it'll actually be marked from the warehouse. There you go, it's on the ground, it's in the tracks. See how much easier that is to get them together? And now we just got to get them another, 3-4 inches, and that's what the ratchet strap's going to do. Now it's time to strap this thing on, but these grousers are a little bit too wide for any hooks on ratchet straps. But that's okay because I have some old rope lying around I made a loop with, and I will attach the ratchet to the rope here. And then I'll just put it together that way. You don't really want twists when you're using a ratchet strap. It's not a big deal in this case because we're not putting too much weight on it, but that is best practice. That way you don't have to worry about snapping on you, but like I said, it's not too much weight on here. Crank this down. There you go, you can see it, it's already coming together. No problem. Give that a couple more clicks. And those lines will hook up. And then you'll be able to see air, or you'll be able to see light through the holes, and that's how you know you're lined up. Now the tricky ones are going to be the ones in the back, so I'm going to start with the hard ones first. And when you're putting these bolts in, you want to match the way the bolts look on the rest of the tread. So see how the screw head is actually faced inward. And then the nuts are going to be faced toward the top there. So we're going to put the nut just like that. That interior one is still a little far away. We're going to crank that in. There we go. And a good rule of thumb here is just kind of muscle it together. And this is why it's good to have two people with you, because it is a little bit unwieldy with one. So those are hand tight. I'm going to release the ratchet and then go to town with my wrench. And now that you have the tracks on the machine, it's time to tighten up these bolts here. And there will be a label that says top. You're going to want that flap on top. That's why it's labeled that way. And then there'll be a set of 3 bolts on the outside and then 2 bolts on the inside. And now these are important. These are 11 millimeter sizes. And so the cool thing about these tracks is that because it comes apart in the middle, you actually could, in emergency situations, or if you just wanted to run half tracks, take these apart and then only put them over 2 tires. So if you're in the field and the track breaks, which it probably won't, but anything happens, that's a good option that you have. So highly recommend carrying tools so you can take apart the tracks in the field. Really simple socket wrench, 11 millimeter. You're gonna need a socket wrench because there's not enough room in the back there. Really get a lot of turning. And then I use a standard 11 millimeter wrench just to hold the bottom so it doesn't keep spinning without tightening. All right, so we get that in there, and you can see how tight it is back here, which is why you're gonna want a socket. Once you have the tracks affixed on both sides of the machine, this is where you're gonna start to put air pressure into the tires, and loading up the tires with a little bit of air, that's what's gonna tighten this track out for you. Now, this, you don't have to do this, but I recommend using sealant in the tires, especially if they're a little bit older, just because when you're out hunting, you don't want to have to change a tire because then you'd have to take off the track, and well, I'm trying to avoid that. And so I'm going to pump sealant to all the tires and then fill them up with air. The outside tires you want to be around 5 psi, and then the inside tires you want a little bit softer, so it's easier on the axles, maybe around 3. But you're going to have to tweak this. Every machine's a little bit different just to get that track tight.